My name is Ella Cobbs, and I'm a 17-year-old high school junior. Normally when I say that I'm 17, there's a typical series of questions that follow. What schools are you looking at? What do you want to study? What's your ACT score? What's your SAT score? And of course, the none less terrifying, what do you want to do with your life? All these questions address the near unknown future that is so terrifying to kids my age, because it entails the fact that we have to make serious, life-altering choices when I wasn't even allowed to choose whether or not I wanted to clean my room this morning. These are my daily frustrations, and as a self-absorbed teenager, it feels like the world is against me. But not all kids my age are dealing with these same terrifying unknowns. Take Alice, another girl, also 17, but unlike me, she isn't faced with the same choices that are constantly gnawing at my mind. She isn't worried about what classes she should be taking, or what her GPA is, or her ACT score, or her SAT score, or how many colleges she'll be applying to. And while to me and my friends, knowing what our future holds seems like a dream, Alice's future is far from it. She doesn't lose sleep at night worrying about it. She knows exactly what it holds for her, but it's worse than any college rejection letter could ever be, because Alice is a trafficked sex slave. When I say modern-day slavery, I already have you imagining a country somewhere, halfway across the world with a name you can't pronounce, where some sort of backward society allows people to own other people. But Alice isn't a 15-hour plane ride across the world. She's 15 minutes away in downtown Birmingham, or 2 hours down I-20 in Atlanta, or across the country in Seattle, or Dallas, or Phoenix, or San Francisco, because slavery in the United States did not dissipate with the passing of the 13th Amendment. Just the opposite. There are more people enslaved today than any other time in human history. In fact, twice as many. Over 150 years after the Emancipation Proclamation abolished slavery in the United States, why is the sale of humans in America at an all-time high? When compared with other criminal enterprises, such as drug trafficking, human trafficking is considered low risk for the men and women who profit from it. It is less risky for a trafficker in America to sell people than illegal drugs, all due to a few simple reasons. Primarily, there is a significant gap in training of law enforcement between handling human trafficking and other criminal enterprises. This is mainly due to the way the public views human trafficking. We don't see the human equivalent of a lemonade stand on street corners. We see immoral prostitutes. We don't see the hours on the interstate in the cramped back of vans, or the locked hotel rooms with a different stranger every night, or the complacency due to an intense fear of retribution. We see punishable life choices, which in actuality were never a choice to begin with. And law enforcement sees the same. Because of this, pimps or those who own trafficked victims are hardly ever found responsible for their actions, and instead, victims are arrested and charged with prostitution repeatedly. On top of the relative ease of selling human beings, the profit is ridiculously high. A pimp with 10 Alices makes about $3 million a year, and the girls will never see a cent for themselves. At 12, Alice, like every adolescent ever, lived in some town, USA, where the need to feel accepted and be special made her the perfect target for pimps. These pimps prey on the teenage lack of self-confidence in order to win a target's trust. They give lavish gifts, they proclaim their love for their targets, until they possess complete psychological hold over their victims. Like most trafficked teens, Alice was a runaway, which makes her one of the most susceptible targets for human trafficking, with 1 in 3 teens on the street lured into human trafficking within 48 hours of running away. Once controlled by her pimp, Alice and those like her have absolutely nothing and no one else to support them. They are stripped of all former identification. No license, no social security number, no phone. They are introduced to hard drugs and forced into addiction, another means of control. Once effectively controlled by her pimp, he claimed he needed Alice to do something for him. He needed her to help him out financially, as he always had for her. He needed her to do the thing the other girls Alice was living with did at night. He only needed her to do it once, but one night turned into a second, and a third, and a fourth until 5 years went by, and the amount of times Alice was sold to a stranger for the night became too many to count. Once entering into human trafficking, the average life expectancy of a victim is only 7 more years, with the leading cause of death being suicide. In 2 years, I'll be on a college campus somewhere, probably complaining about how much work I have to do and how much stress I'm under. And in 2 years, Alice may not be able to take another night with another stranger. As everything is today, human trafficking has only become easier and more profitable through the internet. One website in particular, Backpage.com, was the e-commerce capital of human trafficking until just recently. It operates like a Craigslist with several categories where you can buy, sell, or trade goods, such as computers, toasters, and human beings. Once poorly concealed in the adult section of Backpage's website were thousands of explicit photos of men, women, and children listed and advertised for sex. Though the adult page of Backpage's website has been taken down after years of lawsuits, these ads are still prominent on several categories on the website as well as sites like it. I'll explain for a moment how in the world websites that sell human beings are not shut down, erased from the internet, and their owners thrown in prison for aiding in human slavery. Until just 3 days ago, with the passing of the Stop Enabling Sex Traffickers Act, e-commerce websites where victims are bought and sold were basically untouchable to the men and women trying to hold them accountable for their actions. This due to a tiny clause in Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act stating, websites are not to be held responsible for third-party posts. While this does protect online freedom of speech valuable to the majority of the public, it creates immunity for websites like Backpage who hide behind it and establishes an online international platform for human sex trafficking. In order to make any significant ground in the fight against human trafficking, we must first understand it, something the government, law enforcement, and the mass public can't seem to do. The United States is a country that prides itself on surpassing the rest of the world as a beacon of acceptance and justice, but this same republic lacks the character and moral righteousness to learn about the truth about one of the most extreme civil injustices happening within her borders. And instead, we vilify victims instead of persecutors. The most important thing to take away from this, quite simply, is to tell Alice's story. The greatest enemy in the fight against human trafficking is just how little the mass public actually knows about it. Until human trafficking in America is an issue that everyone has an understanding of and everyone has knowledge of, our ignorance will continue to allow our children and citizens to be bought and sold. Ignorance is a powerful tool in silent compliance, but if we tell Alice's story, we humanize someone whose human dignity has been stripped away. Thank you.